Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is going to be a super quick tutorial because I am doing this with an idea to batch sew pouches for a charity. Over in the J.R. Edwards Facebook group, we had talked about doing things with our skills of sewing to give back to our local communities. We decided on a pouch. This one is going to be from K-Deal Handmade. It's actually called the Color Block Wristlet, but I'm going to be making it as a pouch. The concept behind these events is that every month in the J.R. Edwards Facebook group, we will have an event set up and we will talk about ideas of ways we can use our sewing to give back to our communities. In January, we are going to be doing the Color Block Wristlet from K-Deal Handmade. This pattern comes together quick already, but I'm going to make it even quicker by changing up a couple things. Let's go ahead and get started talking about how we're going to make this pouch and the ways we can make it even quicker so we can donate it to charities. We're just going to use a few supplies so that it sews up quick, but also so it can be useful. I'm going to be donating these pouches to my local women's shelter. Whenever you are in a shelter, you don't have a lot of space, you don't have a lot of room, you don't have a specific spot in the bathroom, so you need to take your items with you every time you go. We are going to be using TPU, clear vinyl, and jelly vinyl. So our pouch will be designed to have your toiletries in it whenever you go to the bathroom. It will be waterproof, so if you have to set it down in an area that's wet, or if it accidentally gets wet, or if it's carrying wet items back and forth, it'll be able to be easily wiped off. Plus, since I'm using these materials, I won't need to interface, I won't need to make a lining, so it'll be even quicker for me to make a lot of these to gift to help all at once. I'm choosing to use a clear TPU. Mine comes from J.R. Edwards. I'm also choosing to use a black jelly vinyl. I'm not for sure where I got this from. This pattern is really simple, so we're just going to talk about a few of the concepts with this pattern, but basically you can adjust it if you need to for your own purposes. The way this pattern is written, I can take this roll of 12-inch vinyl and I can cut a strip down one side. The piece I will cut will be how wide the pattern tells us to cut. Once I cut that strip, so I just make one cut, I will fold it in half, cut it down the middle, and get two even pieces. The pattern gives you those specific measurements, but I'm just telling you how easy I do it. If your vinyl was 18 inches, I would still do the same thing and just measure the width of the pattern piece and cut it down one strip and then cut in the middle. Yours may be a little bit bigger than if you're using 18 inches instead of 12 inches. So we will cut two pieces of the clear vinyl that way. You can use the exact measurements, or you can just do like me, cut in half. Then I do the same thing for the jelly vinyl. So I have one piece of clear TPU, one piece of jelly that's going to be the front of the bag. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other piece. Clear jellies. So you have two pieces of clear vinyl, two pieces of black jelly or whatever color you want to use. That's all you're cutting. Those four pieces. We're going to have some zipper tape. Of course, I'm using mine from Sew Majestic. That's what I use for about all of my zipper tape. I'm going to have one tag to put on it. This is just decorative, so not necessary. I'm only going to use one zipper tab. I'm going to fold the other side down that 90-degree angle. I just rough cut a piece of jelly to finish the end of the zipper. Didn't measure anything. For my zipper pull, I'm going to choose to use a zipper pull with a hole in the middle, so in case they want to hang this bag on a hook, they have the option to do that. You could do this, or you could also put a D-ring on yours or make yours into a wristlet. I'm just trying to do mine quick and simple, so that is why I'm doing it this way. These are all the materials I need. Super quick, super simple. The first thing I do is I just clip these two pieces together. My print is directional, so I am being aware that because what I want is I want on the opposite side, this is the front, on the opposite side on the back, I want the black on this side and the clear on this side. That will give a little bit of contrast to the bag. All I do is I clip them right sides together. Your jelly does not have a right or wrong side, so you really can't mess that up. I'm just going to sew down this edge. I'm just going to use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Doesn't really matter because as long as you're consistent, this pouch will work out fine. So just back stitch at the top and the bottom. And then what I'll do after I do that is I'm going to butterfly this seam. That means I'm going to separate and push both of the seams to one side each, and then I will top stitch down both sides of that seam. So let's go ahead and do that for the front and for the back, and then we'll be putting the bag together. Whenever I'm working with a clear or jelly vinyl, there's a couple things I always want to do. The first thing is I want to turn up my stitch length to about a 4. I don't use a Teflon foot, but my foot is very small, so not a lot of it is going to be under the foot to create a lot of sticking. You can use a Teflon foot if you need to. I choose to sew with the clear vinyl up. I feel like the main problem I have when sewing with these kinds of things is that it sticks to the bed of my machine. The jelly won't stick, so I'm going to choose to have the clear vinyl up, so it's just a little portion of my foot that may stick if it wants to. But if I had it opposite, if I had the clear vinyl against the bed of my machine, I find that I have more trouble that way. So try this if you have trouble and see if it helps you. Otherwise, I'm just going to sew everything normal and backstitch, and then I'll be good to go. First seam is sewn. I am pushing these 2 seams open, and then I'm just going to sew from this wrong side so I can watch to make sure that I get that seam open and doesn't try to flip back. And I'm going to have the edge of my foot right up against that seam I just sewed. So it's about 1/8 of an inch away. If you find your jelly is sticking, just hold it up, lift it up so it's not being pushed against your bed, and that will help you quite a bit. Okay, so that's what's mine going to look like. I have the seam opened, the 2 rows of stitching on each side. I'm going to trim up my threads and move on to my other one and go ahead and get that one sewn as well. I'm having a little bit of sticking, and I'm just going to lower the pressure on my foot. So it's going to go up. That means there's less pressure pushing down, so it'll be less pulling and dragging. It'll just help it a little bit. Again, I'm butterflying that seam, top stitching down both sides, and 1/8 of an inch away. Since I know the vinyl is prone to sticking on this other side, I'm going to kind of hold it up while I sew and kind of not push and pull my material, but just kind of help it go through easier. So it's not dragging and I'm getting loose stitching. So this is what I meant, but I wanted it to go in opposite direction, so I had that little bit of contrast there. If your print is not directional, you don't have to really be careful with this, but where mine is, I definitely want to make sure I had it going the right way. I'm trying to decide which way. This way is definitely my prettier side because the bird is kind of more in focus there, and I did not try to fussy cut these at all. I just kind of went, like I said, went down the center and got it done. So I'm not going to worry about it, but this one and even my stitches were a little bit worse here. So that is where I'm going to put my tag to kind of cover up those stitches just a little bit to make it look a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and get my threads long so that I'll be able to pull those threads through instead of back stitching. Okay, I'm just going to add my tag right now. Okay, I have my tag on. It's super cute. I like it right there in the middle. I'm just going to trim up these threads, and then I'm going to cut out corners on the bottom so I'll be able to box my corners on this pouch. I got a little bit of my marking pen on my jelly vinyl. It just wipes off though, so it won't be a problem. If it hasn't went away by the time I'm done, I'll just take a wet cloth and wipe that off and it comes right off. Next thing I need to do is I need to add the zipper. So this is going to be considered my front, and what I want to do is I want to cut my zipper just a little bit longer than what I need right now in the beginning, because I'm going to first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put on my zipper pull, and then I'm going to fold those edges back on the one side at a 90-degree angle. You could definitely use zipper tabs on both of these. I just find this easier. Everybody is different in what they find easier. If you don't like doing this, just do your zipper tabs. So I just separate it a little bit, and then I simply push that edge up on the front. Sometimes I will put a clip here, sometimes I will glue it, sometimes I'll just take it straight to the sewing machine. But for this purpose, I'm going to put 2 clips here, because after I get these clipped in place, and see again, I'm just using one finger to push in the back and the other finger on front to pull it down to get those even. And if it's coming out here a little bit, I simply just adjust so it's all behind there and it's a straight edge. For this one, I'm going to clip these right now so that I can make for sure that this zipper will not be caught in my seam allowance when I'm sewing. I want a good portion right here that's clear, free from my zipper, so that I don't sew over it. I'm going to come over on the other side and make a mark so that I know where to cut, because like I said, I don't want that zipper in my seam allowance at all. It just makes a harder pouch to sew. It just doesn't look as good. Get this back on here, check it again. It looks great. I feel really comfortable with that won't be in the seam allowance. So now I'm just going to take this zipper tab, slip it on here, and I'm going to sew the zipper tab on, and I'm also going to sew down these edges. Whenever I'm sewing these, I always start by going up to the zipper teeth. I never sew over the zipper teeth, and I don't try to do the opposite way, because your foot will push it down. If you need to, you can even use a stiletto to hold this in place, but what I do is I just use my finger to hold those teeth in place. Make sure you back stitch. Come all the way up. Don't let your needle go over the teeth, but your foot will, of course. Do the same thing for the other side. It's a little bit trickier than from the other side because it feels a little awkward, but still this is the best method I feel when sewing these in place. If you glue them, you don't even really have to sew them because they will be caught in the seam allowance whenever you sew it onto your pouch. Now I'm just going to trim everything up. When you're sewing with clear vinyl, it's very important to trim all your threads because they will show through. So if you're doing a regular bag, lots of times those extra threads will be caught in your seam allowance. You won't see them, but for this one, everything will be seen. Zipper's ready. It's time to put everything together. I know I want this to be my front. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take my zipper. I want it to close to the left. This is the front. I just flip it down, center it, sew across. I'm going to sew across with the full seam allowance, no basting here because this is the only step. We're not adding a lining. After I sew this in place, then I'm going to flip it up, top stitch. We will then add the second piece, the back side, doing the same thing. sewn down, I'm going to flip it up, and I'm going to top stitch from one edge all the way to the other because I want to kind of sew that seam down so it's easier for me to attach the two whenever it's time to attach them. Looks great. Let's do the other side the exact same way. I'm going to put it right sides down onto that zipper, so the zipper and my exterior are right sides together. Line up the edges, put a few clips there. These are also great as gifts if you have people you want to give quick gifts to, or if you want to keep them on hand in case someone comes over. Lots of times I'll fill them with candies or little soaps or lotions, whatever you want to do, and you have gifts that are available for anybody who stops by. So gifts, charity, or if you just need things for yourself for storage, they're just perfect for that. Top stitching again. I know it's so simple, but really that's just beautiful. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too easily amused. Okay, I'm going to clean up my threads here on the back. Like I said, they will show through. I got a little bit of nesting here that I think will be caught mainly in my seam allowance and won't be too noticeable. Just where I didn't hold the tail of my thread very long. So I made sure my zipper was open. I'm not opening it down there. It'll pop open whenever I turn it. That'll just help keep it together for right now. But I'm going to fold my exterior right sides together. I'm going to have to kind of pinch my zipper tab where it is that jelly. It is a little stiff, but it's okay. I still have plenty of room without it being in the way for me to sew down these sides. What I'm going to do is sew down the sides, the bottom, the other side, and then I will come back to box my corners. This sounds a little bit long just for my cutting. I didn't cut properly. It's so hard to cut clear vinyl and jelly. If you are having trouble, you can use masking tape and tape down your clear or jelly vinyl. Tape it to your cutting mat with that masking tape, and then use your ruler and rotary cutter to cut it. That is the best way. Lots of times I get lazy and I don't do it, but especially if you have big pieces to cut, try that tip and you will find it so much more helpful. Okay, I'm going to use the seam allowance given the pattern to sew down the sides and the bottom. Make sure you back stitch at the top when you start and stop. We're not sewing our cutout corners. We're going to use those to box the corners, so we leave those unsewn. I'm not going to trim the seams. I'm just going to cut the overhang where I didn't get everything cut perfectly even. That's all I'm doing. I'm leaving the seams alone for right now. If you want, if you feel later that you need to trim them, you can, but I won't. So now at this point, I'm just going to stick my hand. I always go in the middle, open everything up. I am not butterflying these seams. I feel like I usually prefer to butterfly, but with this material, I feel like it could be a little bit risky with that seam, that it might provide a little bit of like instability. So I'm not doing it. I'm nesting these seams, pushing that open, making sure they nest perfectly and get straight. I'm going to add a few clips. I'm pulling. You see, I'm pulling to get that. I want this edge straight. If you don't kind of pull it and straighten it out, it'll be kind of crooked and it won't make a perfect corner. Definitely want a really nice corner here. Since I have this seam going this way, I need to have it going this way on this other side as well. Pushing open. Pulling. I've got to switch that side seam there so they're nested to offset the bulk. Going to come down here, pull, perfect, perfectly straight. I'm going to sew across both of these corners, and then we're turning it and we're done. The only thing I might do is, see how this corner right here is a little sharp? I might kind of cut it at a curve so that it's not a sharp point here. So if you stick your hand there, it won't be sharp, it'll be rounded. So I'll probably do that. I typically do. Okay, it's done. Let's go ahead and trim up our seams. Let's go ahead and trim the threads. I'm just going to round all the corners, trim off any loose threads I see. And then we're turning it out and we're going to be done. This is a really quick pattern. You could batch sew these. When you batch sew, that means you're just sewing them all at once. I typically, if I have like say 10, I'll do each step on all 10 at a time. It just saves time. You think it wouldn't save time, but it really does. It'll go a lot quicker. And so making all these, if you made like 10 of these, that would be a great donation to your local shelter. Definitely, it would be much appreciated. And it's just a way to use our sewing skills to help out the community. We've worked hard to get these skills. And so getting to do something that gives back and that's a kind gesture, it just makes us feel good. Plus, we all have a lot of extra supplies in our sewing room. This is a way for us to use them up and to help people out. It's a win-win. Let's push this out. I'm going to go slow. It'll take a little time. Fortunately, TPU and jelly are both very easy to turn. It's not like your old type of PVC that really gets stiff. I want to put my thumbs right in those corners. I may need to use the stiletto. Yeah, I'll probably need to use the stiletto on those corners just to get them poked nicely. I still see that mark on. I will need to wipe it off really good. Okay, everything looks great. I need to trim up some threads there. Push out that zipper tab. If you can do it with your hands, great. If you can't, and I can't, get your stiletto and just apply pressure to the tab only. Once you get a little hole, then I'll usually come on the other side to pull and get it the rest of the way popped out. And in that short of time, I've made this little cosmetic pouch. It's super cute and it can be helpful, and it's just a nice gesture. So if you have some extra time, if you have some supplies, if you're stuck in because it's cold and dreary outside, consider downloading this pattern. Consider pulling out your TPU. Not only is it fun, but I think you'll enjoy being able to give back to your community. If you want to join us over in the Jane R. Edwards group, we will be making the event for February soon. I do believe I already know what I'm doing for that one. I kind of have an idea. But we use those events to talk about other like projects or patterns that we could use to make quickly to help out in our community, whoever it is or wherever your heart lies. We can use our sewing skills to help others, do something nice, and feel good. So, quick recap. Pattern is from K. Deal Handmade. TPU is from Jane R. Edwards. Zipper tape is from Sew Majestic. Tag is from Heartwood and Hyde. I'll have the links in my description. And thank you guys for watching. If you watched all this, I know it wasn't a very exciting tutorial, but giving back to the community is something that's important to me. I hope you guys will watch the other projects I'm doing for the rest of the year. And please, if you have any ideas of ways you give back using your sewing, let me know in the comments. I want to think of more ideas, and I know I'll probably need some motivation or some suggestions soon. But thank you so much, and I hope you guys have the opportunity to create something beautiful in your sewing room today.